crow after row, how separate but equal has become the new standard in women's health and how we can change that. Welcome to Democracy Now! The significance of what took place yesterday in the Supreme Court and these arguments, the questioning by the Supreme Court justices, Jessica?
Yes, the questions are very significant. I think we see that the presidential elections matter. The female justices were all over the attorneys from Texas in terms of their purported reasons for supporting the law and as a health and safety regulation, when it clearly, from those justices' perspective at least, was not rising to that level.
And Jessica, could you explain what the potential outcomes are given the 8-member Supreme Court at the moment?
Sure. So we have a couple of different options. As you mentioned in your introduction, one is the possibility of a 4-4 tie. And should the justices split 4-4, what that would do is likely leave in place the Fifth Circuit decision that has allowed most of these regulations to take effect. Should the court tie 4-4, there's a good chance that they will probably try to rehear the case in the following term when they have, hopefully, all 9 justices. So that's one option. Of course, Justice Kennedy could decide to side with the liberal justices, and there were some questions in the argument that suggested he was at least considering that, in which case the Fifth Circuit decision would be overturned, or there's the possibility of them kicking it back down to the Fifth Circuit with some specific questions and saying, you know, we would like some more evidentiary fact-finding with regard to, say, the ambulatory surgical center provisions. If that happens, I would suspect that the Supreme Court leaves in place the order that is currently preventing the law from taking effect as widely as it would should they decide to uphold the Fifth Circuit completely.
And Jessica, how will this case affect other cases before the Supreme Court on Mississippi and Louisiana? Louisiana has a case before the court that could close all but one clinic.
Yeah, so the state of Louisiana's response to the Supreme Court was due yesterday, and there's an emergency petition because, similar to Texas, the Fifth Circuit decided to overturn a district court order blocking these provisions in Louisiana and say that they should take effect while the appeals process takes place. And that's an important thing because, as we've seen in Texas, it is very difficult to reopen clinics once they close, which is exactly the point of these kinds of laws. So the Supreme Court has to decide what it's going to do with Louisiana. Meanwhile, you mentioned Mississippi also, which is part of the Fifth Circuit. The Supreme Court is still sitting on a case, Jackson v. Currier, which is challenging similar restrictions and, if they go into effect, would close the state's only clinic. In that case, the Fifth Circuit ruled that the Mississippi law should not take effect because of that very fact, that it was designed to close the only clinic. So the Fifth Circuit has made a mess of the law in its own area. Meanwhile, other circuits have refused to let these laws take effect. The Seventh Circuit blocked a similar measure in Wisconsin. And so one of the reasons that the Supreme Court is going to have to eventually, if not in this case, in the next one, decide this issue is because we have in this country right now a patchwork of laws and access for women. Some women can access abortion clinics and care when they need it, and many, many cannot.